Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for coming to this plenary talk. I have the honor of introducing our third plenary speaker. Dr. Deanna Haunsperger is a professor of mathematics at Carleton College in Minnesota. Yeah. She is a longtime supporter of NCUWM, but I learned yesterday this is her first time attending. Yeah. Round of applause for that. Since her own undergraduate days, Deanna has been interested in increasing the number and diversity of students who pursue advanced degrees in mathematics. That passion has guided her involvement with the Mathematical Association of America in multiple roles, such as the former co-editor for Math Horizons magazine for undergraduates, chair of the MAA's Strategic Planning Committee on Students and the Council on Outreach, recently as president of the MAA, and currently as the editor of the MAA's blog site, Math Values. But one of her favorite accomplishments over the years has been co-founding and co-directing Carleton's Summer Mathematics Program for Women, a successful, intensive, 4-week summer program to encourage undergraduate women to pursue advanced degrees in the mathematical sciences. So I actually met Deanna through this program, and I know we have other SMP alumna here today. Yeah, hi. Her talk today is titled Community and Belonging in Mathematics. It is a pleasure to have her here to speak to the NCUWM community. Please join me in welcoming Deanna.
Thank you so much. Do I have this on? Okay, good. Thank you so much. I'm really pleased to be here. It's so important to me to be part of such a vibrant community, and I thank you for welcoming me into it. Welcome to our community. You belong here. These are 7 very simple words, but I think that they can help us change the face of mathematics. Michelle Obama, when she wrote her book, Belonging or Becoming, said, "At Princeton, I needed my black friends. We provided one another relief and support. Performing as well as everyone else is doable, of course. Minority and underprivileged students rise to the challenge all the time, but it takes energy. It takes energy to be the only black person in a lecture hall or one of a few non-white people trying out for a play or joining an intramural team. It requires effort, an extra level of confidence to speak in those settings and own your own presence in the room." I completely believe this, and I have another example from our own delightful Talithia Williams, who we heard this morning. And here's Talithia talking about her time at Spelman College, which is a historically black college or university for women in Atlanta, Georgia. If I can get...
When I was in a classroom with all black women, I was never ever aware of my race or my gender. I was always just sort of enthralled with the mathematics and just consumed by it. That it never occurred to me that I was like a black woman doing math, or a woman or a person of color doing math, because we all were. And so it just it I think gave me much more space to think about mathematics in a way that I noticed changed when I got in other spaces. And also like finding a group to study with, and to, these things just came so easy that it just felt like math was easy. It's like, oh, this is easy. Everybody wants to be in my group. My teachers love helping me. Like, it just felt like, who wouldn't want to learn math like this? This is just awesome,
Yeah, exactly. Who wouldn't want to learn math like that? Don't you feel it when you're in here and you look around? I'm looking at a beautiful group of people right now. Don't you just kind of feel your shoulders relax and you just feel a little more comfortable in the space? And that comfort in the space, that comfort in the space, you just won't shut up. That comfort in the space comes from having people around you, your community. Community here, I'm thinking a group of people sharing a common interest or characteristics that is perceived as or perceives itself different from the larger society in some way. And when you're in your community, that sort of normalizes your experiences. It acts as an equivalence class for you, where you have the same sort of background, the same commonalities, and you feel more comfortable. And then my question for you to talk about today is, can those communities change our face of mathematics, literally the face that we see of mathematicians. An SMP alumni, we'll talk about SMP in a moment, it was wonderful to participate in a community where everyone liked math and where wanting to go for a PhD wasn't some weird, special, ambitious thing to do, but just a normal career option. It was all the more valuable for the fact that I also didn't have to worry about monitoring myself to fit in despite being a woman. I was surrounded by all sorts of women I could relate to, admire, and learn from. Keeping in touch with SMP has really helped me stay determined to continue pursuing my PhD. When we feel like an outsider instead of a member of a community, we're constantly scanning the room for threats, looking for signs that we are in danger. We're not that far removed from our animal ancestors that we're looking for, like, is someone here going to harm me? Is someone going to call me out? Is that comment that I said, is that going to be perceived because I'm a woman in the room? You all have probably been in the experience where you've been the only woman in a room, especially in a mathematics room, and it can be very intimidated, and you worry that you're speaking as the only woman in the room, or you're worried that you're speaking as the only black person in the room instead of part of the group. So Cohen, Schaefer, and Davidson showed that when friends or loved ones are nearby, our bodies react less to stress, and being part of a community is healthier for your body and frees up brain capacity. Studying mathematics in a group of women students is the best. People explain things so that others would understand, and people kept telling each other, good call, great idea, or you're brilliant. You don't hear that studying with guys. It is very reassuring to discover that almost everyone else has the same insecurities and self-doubts, and when you realize everyone else's are unfounded, it starts to chip away at your own. This is not a new idea. The first professor hired at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton was Oswald Veblen. And he was giving a talk in 1950 in the International Congress of Mathematicians, and he said, every human being feels the need of belonging to some sort of group of people with whom he has common interests. What is belonging? I'm thinking the extent to which an individual feels accepted, valued, and legitimate within the community. Social scientists have shown the importance of belonging in reaching our full potential. It's critical. What's most important are food, water, and rest, the physiological conditions. We need safety, security, but then we need intimate relationships, friends, and a sense of belonging to help us gain our feeling of accomplishment and achieving our full potential. Gregory Walton, another social scientist, showed that a sense of belonging can affect motivation and persistence. Angela Duckworth showed that passion, a special kind of passion and persistence, are the secret to outstanding achievement. So without feeling like you belong to a community, you are less likely to hang in there when obstacles arise, less likely to find the inner fortitude to continue, less likely to make outstanding achievements. The feeling of not belonging can fall into a negative feedback loop. If you aren't sure if you belong, everything can sound like a confirmation that you don't. When your mother says to you, are you sure you want to major in math? Or when your teacher says to you, let's talk about that B you got on the test. Or your classmates say, did you have trouble with the homework last night? Everything sounds like, that's a confirmation for me that I don't belong. They're actually saying to me that I don't belong in this space. So people who are unsure or stressed about their belonging then have less time to spend doing mathematics because too much of their mental time and energy is spent on concerns that they do not belong in mathematics. You must have felt this too, where you're in a room and you're thinking, wow, I don't want to ask a question because I might get found out that I don't really understand this, or I might be seen as representing my race or seen as representing my gender or something else. And then you suddenly realize, oh, wait, what was the professor saying? I kind of zoned out for a couple minutes there. That time that is lost where you're thinking, you're worried about the space that you're in and you're not feeling comfortable and not feeling like you belong, that's all time that you could be focusing on the mathematics and being able to dive in deeper. So there are two ideas about mindset. There's an idea that math ability is something you're born with. That's called a fixed mindset. And that's contrasted with math ability is something that you can grow and improve with time and hard work, and that's a growth mindset. And it's been shown that math ability is something that you can grow and improve. It's not something you're born with. But Good, Rattan, and Dweck showed that fixed versus growth mindset, how you see intelligence, how you see gaining intelligence in a classroom can really affect your sense of belonging. So if you believe that, oh, these are all math people and I'm not a math person and I just don't have that brain, then you don't feel like you belong in the space. But if you think, and you can teach yourself this, if you think, I just need to put in more time. These other people who maybe seem like they're understanding it quicker than me, that's because they have a stronger background or they got some material before that I didn't have. So having a sense of belonging, even more strongly than self-identification as a math person, has the power to predict one's academic persistence. Again, in Becoming, Michelle Obama said, "It's hard to put into words what sometimes you pick up in the ether. The quiet, cruel nuances of not belonging, the subtle cues that tell you tell you to not risk anything, to find your people and just stay put." A woman at the Infinite Possibilities Conference said, "I think that particular conference was a great place for anybody who was sort of questioning, did they really belong? Is this really the right place for me? Are there people like me who do this kind of thing?" And I think it was a great place to just get reinforcement that if this is something you really like and you're willing to work hard at, there are people here who want to help you. And there are people that look like you, that agree with the things you're interested in, that are willing to support you on your path. One community that has been really important to me is the Mathematical Association of America. It's a huge community. Communities can be small or communities can be huge, and I'll be talking about both kinds. But the Mathematical Association of America is 20,000 people or so, and the association itself has as one of its values building community and being inclusive, the two of its values. Building community and being inclusive. And I just agree with so much of what the association stands for and what they're doing. And the people are lively and interesting and want to become better teachers and want to be better mathematicians. And I just really connect with them. One of their sub-communities, started in 1994, and that is MA's Project Next, New Experiences in Teaching. That's the next part. It is for people who have just finished or recently finished their PhDs in mathematics who are going to go into teaching. Now, before 1994, people who wanted to go into teaching, there might be one in this college and one in this university and two over here and one over here, but they weren't able to communicate with each other and share ideas and get insights about how to become a better teacher. And the directors, Chris Stevens and Jen Leitzel, thought, we really just need a way to bring these people together and let them talk to each other and get ideas about how to be better teachers. And the current director, Dave Kung, said, "We work hard to develop great sessions about innovative, effective teaching. But the most valuable thing we provide is space for the new math faculty to meet each other, to create a support group, to build a community." What I want to focus on today, though, are communities that support members of groups that are typically underrepresented in mathematics. A good one is the Nebraska Conference for Undergraduate Women. You've heard some before. This is the 25th anniversary. It was started in 1999. It's a great opportunity start building this community of other people like-minded, so that other people, when you have questions or when you're questioning yourself, you have other people to reach out to. That's why it's really important, and the organizers really want you to meet other people here and make that connection, so that when you're having trouble at your home institution, or when you go to graduate school and you need somebody that has your back, you can reach out and say, hey, remember we were at that conference together? Could we talk for a minute? So that's why it's really good for you to meet other people. The National Association of Mathematicians started in 1969. I'm going to go back in time for a moment. 1969 as a group predominantly for black mathematicians. It's a group, they run a math fest every fall for undergraduates. The Association for Women in Mathematics started in 1971 as a way of supporting and promoting women with earning advanced degrees in mathematics. The Society for Advancing Chicanos, Hispanics, and Native Americans in Science, which is in science broadly, but they have a subgroup in mathematics, a smallish subgroup in mathematics, was formed in 1973 to support those groups in studying science. The Enhancing Diversity in Graduate Education, the EDGE group, with Reagan's co-directing, started in 1998 and is a wonderful support group for women who are in between undergraduate and graduate education. The Math Alliance started in Iowa in 2001 as a nice way to help members from underrepresented groups get into graduate school and succeed in graduate school. The Infinite Possibilities Conference that I mentioned before started in 2005. It started by several graduates of Spelman who were honoring one of their professors, and they realized at the conference, it was just going to be a single conference, but they realized this is really great, getting all these amazing women together and meeting and talking mathematics. And so that community continued on. Women in Number Theory. Here's for people who have degrees, advanced degrees in number theory, they were realizing that there weren't very many women at the conferences. So they said, well, some of them got together, 3 women got together and said, let's start a conference just for women in number theory and get together and talk about mathematics. And it was so successful that they've kept meeting every couple of years. And there have been other women in groups that have started doing women in different mathematical areas. This is the first conference to which I have been where I saw so many mathematicians of color, and this was affirming that I too belong in this field, and proves that the face of mathematics is changing with my generation. For the first time, I networked with many fellow mathematicians who look like me, and this powerful experience truly resonated with me. A participant in EDGE said, "Participation in EDGE changed my life. The opportunity to live and learn amongst like-minded peers all working towards a common goal was a totally different experience than I had as in undergrad. I was a part of a community. I belonged." Now, if you notice the years that those communities formed, there were NAM, AWM, and SACNAS all started around the late 60s, early 70s. But many of the other communities I mentioned and many other communities out there didn't happen until the mid to late 90s or even the 2000s. Why did it take so long? Well, often these communities have been left to individuals to form. So many of these communities started when just a couple people said, you know, we really need a group who will come together and meet together, just like Judy Walker was one of a small group of people who started this conference. I mean, it takes some people just standing up saying, I am going to invest my time in doing this because it's important. And much of the research by social scientists happened in the past 30 years. So it was also a factor in why some more of these groups have started. So what are we learning from these communities? There was an NSF Includes grant that was headquartered here at the University of Nebraska that was with Judy Walker and myself, Ruth Haas from the Smith Center for Women in Mathematics, Amy Radenskaya from EDGE at that time, plus a couple of social scientists here from UNL. And the idea was to study what we've learned from the communities that existed so far. So there were 1,531 past participants from programs identified, from the Carleton Summer Mathematics Program for Women, from the Nebraska Conference, this conference, from the Center for Women in Mathematics at Smith, the Women in Mathematics at Princeton, and the Infinite Possibilities Conference. Of those 1,531, 198 were randomly selected for a quantitative study, and of those, 34 were who earned or were working towards their PhD did an extensive qualitative study. That is, they sat with someone for an hour or two on the phone and answered a bunch of questions about their career and how they've progressed. One of the questions that I'd like to point out is, do you think that you would have stayed in mathematics without your experience in enrichment programs or conferences like this conference? 22 of the 34 simply said no. That is, they would not have gone on with mathematics if it weren't for these enrichment programs. 5 were unsure. 3 were unsure but said that they would have been less successful, and 4 said yes. So absorb those numbers for just a second. This is a random survey of these 1,500 people, and most of them said that the participating in an enrichment program was really important to their future progress in mathematics, their desire to continue on. The late Toni Morrison said, "I tell my students, when you get these jobs that you have been so brilliantly trained for, just remember that your real job is that if you are free, you need to free somebody else. If you have some power, then your job is to empower somebody else." John Wesley Young, who is a professor at mathematics in Dartmouth and the MAA president in the early 20th century, said something similar for mathematics. He said this was his retiring presidential address as MAA president. "The roots and trunk and branches of the tree of mathematics are quite as important as the blossom or the fruit." The blossom or the fruit here being mathematical achievement, new mathematical theorems, new proofs. The roots and trunk and the branches of the tree of mathematics. This is the community. This is the structure underlying all this. And the former must exhibit healthy life if the latter are to be produced at all. There is important work for all of us. The sin in of the mathematician is not that they don't do research. The sin is idleness when there is work to be done. If there be sinners, I love this preachiness, if there be sinners in my audience, I would urge them to sin no more. Whatever your abilities, there is work for you to do for the greater glory of mathematics. So I would like to tell you a specific example about one of these enrichment programs that's incredibly near and dear to my heart, and that is the Carleton College Summer Mathematics Program for Women. Let me tell you a little of the history of this program, and the history is in part my history. I was a first-generation college student. My father was a factory worker, and my mother worked as an aide in the local elementary school. And so when I went to college, my parents were very supportive of education. So when I chose a college to go to, I went to the local shopping mall where there was a college fair, and there were tables where all the local colleges were advertising, and I just went up and started talking to one of them, and gosh darn, the guy was so friendly. And I thought, wow, I really found like right away this connection with this super special person at this super special college. I must be destined to go there. I didn't really realize that recruiters, that was their job, to like make you feel like you're the most important person ever. But that's how I chose my college. Even though I knew that I wanted to go to and study mathematics, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't know that different colleges and universities had different curriculums in mathematics. I honestly thought that a bachelor's degree in mathematics was the same no matter which college or university you went to. So I thought, well, you know, they're just in different locations and they're different sizes. So I just picked one that was like an hour from my home and was small because I like small colleges. So when I got there, I learned within the first couple of years, it took me a while, I'm a little slow, I learned that my college was really good in opera, not so good in math. Now that's changed. So if any of you recognize my college, let me just say it's much better in math now. But for example, my real analysis background, they didn't offer real analysis. So I took a reading course, which I didn't know how to do a reading course. So I did a really poor reading course in real analysis. And I had an abstract algebra course, one term, and during that term, my professor flaked out and left the school, so it became a reading course. So I had basically no abstract algebra or real analysis when I went to grad school. Now, this still shocks me, and I really don't understand how this happened, but I got into Northwestern with such a weak background and, let me say, devastatingly poor GRE scores. I would be happy to be more explicit to anyone one-on-one with that, but I really rather not announce my GRE scores publicly. Let me say I cried for days after getting my GRE scores. Anyway, somehow I managed to get into Northwestern. And I have a funny story. My advisor, I mentioned last night that it's really important to pick a good advisor, and I picked a fantastic advisor. And years after I got into Northwestern, my advisor told me the story about my entering class at Northwestern. Because when I went and visited the school, there were 40 faculty, 2 of whom were women, and there were 40 graduate students, 1 of whom was a woman. And that's the environment that I was going into. And the summer before I started, my advisor went and said to the graduate chair, the graduate director at Northwestern, hey, George, can you tell me about the entering class? Are there any women? And George said, no, I don't think so. There are 12 entering students, but I don't think there are any women. And my advisor, Don, said, well, doggone it, George. You know, we've been saying for so many years we have to get more women. And George said, I just took the best students. I didn't look at the genders. And Don said, well, can I see the list? And he looked and he said, George, half of these are women. Like, oh, okay, so there's a little advantage to not paying attention to who is a man and who's a woman because half of them were women. So my entering class of 12 students had 6 women in it. And that was really, really my saving grace. Those 6 women, and then the women in the year after that, became my community at graduate school. We studied together, we prepared for exams together, we hung out together, we had each other's back, really, literally had each other's back. In fact, you can see Lunt Hall, the math building at Northwestern here, and it has a very beautiful foyer, but like nobody cleaned it in a really long time. But you know, we were a different graduate student class, and we kind of wanted to leave our mark as a different graduate student class. So we got out the spick and span, and we cleaned up that foyer, and we threw a fancy party, the Lunt Hall Ball. And we invited the faculty, and we wore our old bridesmaids' dresses from, you know, when we'd been bridesmaids at other people's weddings, and we had quite the good party. The faculty were a little surprised. Let me see. So after I finished at graduate school, I met my husband there, and we got married after graduate school. And then I went to St. Olaf in a visiting position. St. Olaf is in the same town as Carleton in Northfield, Minnesota. And it was a very important place for me to grow as a mathematician and as an educator. St. Olaf at that time, well, let me say before I arrived. So I arrived in 91 at St. Olaf. In the 70s and 80s, these 4 guys arrived, Lynn Steen, Arthur Seebach, Lauren Larson, and Ted Vesey. And they had a different sort of philosophy about mathematics. And everyone in the department was at sort of a retirement age. So they were able to come in and bring their ideas and bring them in and change that department. So when they came in, there were about 18 majors a year, maybe, like 2% of the graduating seniors every year would be math majors. But they had this big tent philosophy. Mathematics is for everyone. Everyone should be welcome in mathematics. And the C students who they're going to graduate St. Olaf with a C average, well, they have to major in something. Why not mathematics? Mathematics is a great thing for them to major in. Mathematics is a great thing for anybody to major in. So they welcomed students into the math major instead of weeding them out by saying, oh, if you're not getting A's, you're not good enough to be in math. They welcomed them in. And they began something called a contract major, where if you wanted to major in math at St. Olaf, you had to go up to an advisor or the department chair and say, I want to major in mathematics. And let's sit down, and the faculty advisor and you would sit down and you'd fill out a contract. These are the courses I plan on taking. These are the work study jobs I'd like to do in the department. These are the social activities I will attend. And the department welcomed you in. You were welcome and you were part of the department. The department belonged to you and you belonged to the department. It was this contract that you were making that you belonged to each other. And it worked for all students. It wasn't just for like the C students could finally feel welcome. There were so many students interested in majoring in mathematics. It grew from 18 majors a year to 120 majors a year. The department grew from just a handful of faculty to 20 full-time faculty teaching courses. And they had so many, it's a small liberal arts college, but they had so many majors that they could offer 2 years of real analysis, 2 years of abstract algebra, algebraic topology, 2 years of complex analysis. They could offer all kinds of things because there were so many majors. So that worked for the strong students too. The students who'd already had a lot of background in mathematics, it was their advantage because it was like this big hub, big party in mathematics. So my husband and I were in this environment for 3 years, and we were, in 1991, the Notices of the American Mathematical Society came out with a special issue on the advancement of women in mathematics. And I put little air quotes there because it was disgusting how little women had advanced by 1991. And just reading that, it was mortifying. And we were asking ourselves, what can we do? So my husband and I decided to start this summer program for women. We were transferring from St. Olaf to Carleton that very year. So we were going to start this Carleton summer math program for women with a two-pronged approach. We were going to run a summer program for women finishing their first to second year of undergraduate to give them mentoring and advice that I had needed. It was for me, really. It was for younger versions of me that I had needed to prepare them and get them into graduate school and we wanted to give them this advice at a point in their careers when it was still early enough that they could adjust their schedules. We could tell them, no, really, you do need to have real analysis and abstract algebra, and they could still have time to figure out how to fit that in. We also wanted to set them up with a community of women with similar interests to have their backs and remind them at all those crucial moments that they belong in mathematics. Let me give a little shout out here to Lloyd Douglas. You heard his name mentioned before. He was a supporter of many women's programs in mathematics as they were developing around this time, before the time that the social psychologist said that this is a really good idea, and before the time that maybe the National Science Foundation even thought it was a great idea. He was working at the National Science Foundation and he believed in the programs. So our program was 4 weeks in the summer. We brought in 18 undergraduates and 2 teaching assistants. And we had some wonderful women who came in as instructors: Margaret Robinson, Karen Brooks, Marilyn Rudin, Judy Kennedy, Della Dumbaugh, Erica Flappin. There's a little sneak peek of my husband, Steve Kennedy. Stephen and I ran this program. We had these 2 classes with good instructors, and the instructors taught interesting things that people wouldn't see as an undergraduate, like Morse theory and p-adic analysis and low-dimensional topology, all kinds of interesting classes. Students took 2 classes, and they got lots of mentoring and information. They hung out, much social time. And then throughout the year, the rest of the year, we kept them in touch through a listserv. We did this for a number of years, starting in '95, and then in 2002, Suzanne Boyd finished her PhD. She'd gone through our program, and she wrote, "This past year wins by a mile the roughest, craziest, most frustrating year of my life award. Applying for jobs, finishing my dissertation, arranging to move all at the same time. If any of you out there will be finishing your thesis sometime in the next few years, feel free to give me a call and chat about the process. It's okay if we've never met before. Just tell me you went to SMP." And for us, that was like amazingly gratifying. Here's someone who you don't even have to know her personally, but if you had this connection to this little tiny summer program in a little tiny town in Minnesota, she was willing to put out energy and help mentor you. So by JMM, by 1995, we had 7 people had earned their PhDs who had been through the SMP. So at JMM's 2005, we decided to have a little reunion. JMM is the Joint Mathematics Meetings that occurs every January. We decided to have a little reunion. 30-some people came. And if any of you know me, I am a planner. I have my notebook. I have my lists. I am ready to go. I was thinking, okay, these women, they're from different summer years. And so they're not going to know each other, and they're not going to have anything to talk about. So I made icebreaker games. I had all my stuff prepared, and I went. My husband and I were late. We arrived 10 minutes late to the dinner, and they were all talking so much I couldn't get a word in edgewise. And this was hugely eye-opening to us. They were willing to just sit there and talk to each other. Who's your graduate advisor? What are you interested in? Oh, let me tell you about applying for jobs. Here's information about REUs. Oh, I went to that REU. Let me tell you about it. They were mentoring each other, and we didn't have to do anything. So as more people finished their PhDs, we decided that we would, in 2005, we continued the summer program, but we wanted to bring back some PhDs to talk to the summer program. So this was the first year we did that, and I think there are 9 women sitting up there. And these PhDs were going to answer questions of the undergraduates and tell them what graduate school was like and how you can get your PhD successfully. The thing is, I took this picture. So to my right, there are the 18 undergraduates who are in the summer program, and to my left are these wonderful women who had been through the summer program holding PhDs. And the woman sitting right next to me, she looked at the PhDs, and she turned around and looked at the undergraduates, and she looked at the PhDs, and she said, "Wait. You're telling me that they all have PhDs? They were sitting here just a few years ago, and they all now have PhDs?" She was, for the first time, seeing herself as being able to earn a PhD and come back and talk to the summer program as an experienced person, as a mentor who held a PhD. It was just an amazing experience. So we continued these summer these symposiums, cleverly named by my husband as SMPosium, and women kept earning their PhDs. Now, a little back of the envelope calculation here. By that I mean, this is not exactly precise. It's just a little estimation. Oh my. Okay, so I just looked at the clock, sorry. Comparing the number of women earning degrees from graduate schools in group 1, 2, and 3 departments, 2001 to 2005, and the number of women finishing PhDs in those same departments like 5 years later, shows that there's about a 26% persistence rate to PhD. That is, about 26% of the women who entered graduate school during that time period finished. If you do the same calculation for SMP alumni, the rate is about 63%. Now, these women, they were undergraduates. They were first or second year undergraduates, unsure of what their future was going to hold. But yet, giving them the supportive network, this group of people that really helped them understand and believe in themselves and feel confident enough to go on in mathematics. And women kept earning their PhDs. Oh, the ones in pink, by the way, are actually here in this room. So in 2010, we started a program at the JMM for the women who were in graduate school to give them more advice along the way. And the women kept earning their PhDs. And then we started a mathematician in residence program where a couple of the PhDs from the symposium that would come back would hang around and hang for a longer period of time, because we found it so valuable for these PhDs to talk to the undergraduates about what it was like. So they were there doing their own math during the day, and then they would be role models in the evening for the undergraduates. And the women kept earning their PhDs. And in 2012, we started another aspect of the program, which is we started reaching out to local summer camps. You can see here in the nearby community, there's a large number of immigrant students taking summer school. So our summer program started reaching out to that local summer school. And we literally tied students in knots at this local camp, that a little adorable boy in a yellow shirt. I just love him. We just had so much fun doing that. And you see that we kept earning PhDs. Let me see. SMP was the beginning of my mathematical mentoring journey. I not only benefited from my mentors, but simultaneously this mathematical community facilitated me becoming a future mentor. I now serve as a department chair at a small liberal arts college, advisor to many math majors, but also as part of the Posse Foundation as a faculty mentor to 10 students. SMP gave me the motivation to sustain a graduate student mentoring program for 8 years at the JMM, and now an experiential learning program, Women Who Count, at my own institution. I am forever grateful and proud to be a member of the SMP community. And more PhDs. My SMP family is incredibly supportive. I always feel like the community wants me to succeed, and everyone will do what they can to make sure that happens. I gained lifelong friends, not just professional colleagues, through SMP. And remember, this is just a 1-month summer program. Becky Swanson, who's here? I should have made her name pink. As a college sophomore from a tiny school in the middle of nowhere, I arrived at SMP thinking that I would learn some mathematics for a few weeks in the summer, and that would be it. Little did I know that I was joining a lifelong community. I certainly learned some very interesting mathematics, but just as importantly, or more importantly, I developed friendships and made connections with other women interested in math. It was at SMP that my instructor, Karen Brooks, asked me if I was planning to go to graduate school. It was the first time that anyone had asked me that question. It was a life-changing moment in which I began to realize that I belonged to a mathematics community. The summer program is no longer running, but the SMP community is still alive, well, and strong, and I am proud and thankful to be a member. And more PhDs. A couple years ago, I heard about Rachel Maddow, who's a news anchor on MSNBC. She went to Rockefeller University to give an award to a woman scientist, and she was walking in up to the auditorium to give the award, and she was walking down one of the hallways at Rockefeller University, and she looked up and she saw on the wall a bunch of framed photos of men. And I'm sure you've seen these too. And she said, "What's with the dude wall?" It was 100% men and no women. And I bet many of you have seen these dude walls at universities. I want to counter with this. Instead of a dude wall, this is what I want to have, is a dude wall. These are the women who went through the summer program, who hold PhDs in mathematics now. I'm so proud of them. Of the 343 women who joined the SMP community as undergraduates, 131 hold PhDs in a mathematical science, math, CS stats, or math education. Another 11 hold a PhD in a cognate discipline like economics. 80 more hold terminal degrees in terminal master's degrees, and a handful more are in graduate school. So about 2/3 of the women who joined our program as first or second year undergraduates went on to earn advanced degrees in mathematics. Funding our community was an investment in the future of American mathematics, and that interest, as you saw in what they said about their mentoring, it's still accruing. SMP is where I realized that I could be a mathematician and that this was a possible career path for me. Because of this program, I discovered and attended Budapest semesters in mathematics. Because of this program, I applied to and attended an RAU. Because of this program, I went to graduate school in mathematics. However, the most important thing SMP became to me is an extended math family. I never expected to be able to connect to so many wonderful math women across all stages, from applying to graduate school all the way to having made it in an established career. SMP isn't just a program, it's a giant supportive family. Beyond the summer program, which in itself was enriching and rewarding, SMP has created a network of confident and informed women in mathematics who constantly and consistently support, encourage, and enable one another. This web of connections has bolstered and emboldened so many women to pursue a career in mathematics and to persist when faced with the inevitable difficulties therein. I will readily count myself among these, and for that and so much more, I thank you. Now, the summer program ended in 2014 when the National Science Foundation decided that the programs for women were not moving the needle for women in mathematics. Now, at that same time, the number of PhDs in computer science was going down. So not moving the needle itself was progress. And you can see the percentage of women that say without these kind of enrichment programs, they would not have gone on to advanced degrees in mathematics. So I definitely disagreed with the NSF, but they ended funding for a bunch of women's programs. We have gone on to continue the community and continue to build the community, and there was just a reunion at the latest JMM. I personally have gone on to write about communities. A book came out last year, Count Me In, Community and Belonging in Mathematics. That was done with Della Dumbaugh, and it includes things like the Nebraska Conference for Women. It talks about 26 different communities in mathematics, largely for communities of people who are underrepresented in mathematics, and it talks about the importance of these communities. Della and I have also started a podcast. That little clip you heard of Talithia earlier is from our podcast, Count Me In with Della and Deanna, where we talk about the humanity of mathematics and how the mathematicians that we look at as beautiful, amazing mathematicians, like the one you saw on the stage this morning, and how they have real lives and how they've been through their own struggles and made it through. So I encourage you to check that out. Here are my final thoughts, and I know I'm over time. Thank you for your patience. If we are intentional in building communities, we can support people who already do mathematics, and we can welcome into mathematics members of populations who have not traditionally felt that they belong here. Building communities, welcoming people into mathematics is incredibly professionally rewarding and not that hard. I mean, I would count this as my most important professional achievement in my career, building this community. And I just love connecting and reconnecting with the people in this community. It's so important to me. These women, too, have made their own inroads into building communities and welcoming new generations in. Building a community has an exponential positive effect on mathematics. And you can do it. Create a community in your classroom, in your department, amongst your peers. Tell people they are welcome in mathematics. They are not alone. They belong. Do you want to know what gives you the right? Because you are not alone and you belong. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Deanna. I know we're at time, but maybe we can take a question or two. Is there a question from the audience for Deanna? Yes, Talithia?
I was just curious, Deanna, to hear your thoughts. Why do you think we don't have more programs like EDGE and SMP? it feels like we have like we could run, 4 EDGE programs and 4 S&P programs every summer to really meet demand. And it breaks my heart that we turn so many women away. Like if the women in this room who are applying to grad school apply to EDGE, it's like, ooh, okay, here's the top, and top is relative too, but here's 15 that we can take, and the rest of you, we can't. And so I just wonder, what more can we do as a math community to just have these programs at places every year and just make it be a given instead of this thing that we compete for because resources are so scarce?
I think that resources is the word. I do think it comes down to our national associations and our funding agencies. I mean, I think our national associations have to push our funding agencies to provide more funding to do this. I'm not going to ask a student to pay money when they need to be working to be able to pay their own tuitions. I don't want to ask them to pay money to come to a summer program. I want to be able to give them at least a small stipend and pay their travel. And to do that, we need some sort of financial resources. And if our funding agencies aren't going to believe in us, I mean, I think, honestly, I've talked to the NSF about this, and they continued funding the Nebraska Conference, which I am very appreciative of. They continued funding the Nebraska Conference because, relatively speaking, it's a low cost per student. And Nebraska is very good about watching that cost and making sure that they can get as many of you here as possible for a small amount of money. And it's expensive to run a summer program. Now, I think it's expensive to run a summer program, but it's worth it because of the number of women that it affects, and it brings out into advanced degrees in mathematics. But I think we just need to speak with a common voice and say that this is important to us. And something needs to be done about it. I agree. I mean, we were getting 120 applicants a year for SMP, and at least 100 people would have done well and benefited each year in SMP, and we were able to take 18. And just like Talithia said, we weren't taking like the top students, not at all. One of our major criteria in selecting students was someone who would benefit from being in the program. And benefit maybe because they're at a very male-based school, or being a benefit because they were at a very small school that didn't offer much upper-level mathematics at all. And we knew that they needed advice to go out there and fight for more math classes before they head to grad school. Because if you're in a tiny little school like I was as an undergraduate, and you try to go to grad school, you're going to be hurting. Well, you're not going to be hurting. Here, let me tell you, when I started grad school, I took an undergraduate course. So glad I did. I should have started with 2. I mean, I took an undergraduate algebra class when I started grad school. I should have taken an undergraduate real analysis class, but I did it the other way around. Sorry. I should have taken an undergraduate algebra class. I bombed my first algebra test, first semester, but there's no problem with that. But students need to be told that, and I didn't receive any mentoring at that time. Sorry, that was very long.
Okay, I'll take one more question. I saw a hand over here on the side, Shaw. Thanks, Shaw. Not as much running today.
So you mentioned how the SMP groups were able to continue supporting each other, and I was thinking it would probably be like long distance after the program ends. So how are they able to continue supporting each other?
Yeah, this was pre-Facebook. So we had a list server where just basically a massive email list, and it was for each summer program. So each summer program would email with each other. But a lot of people just became BFFs with a subset of the SMP. Amy and Angelica became close friends and still are. Oh, Angelica's back there. So they became close friends and still are, and that was from 2010. So I mean, all you need is a small group around you. I mean, just get a couple of really good friends who are going to have your back when you need it, and that's what you need.
Great. Let's thank Deanna again.
Thank you.